Or perhaps the river of time can have whirlpools and time can go in on itself. In that case, time travel is something you have to take very seriously, because Einstein's equations do allow for time travel.
You put this helmet on your head, and you can visit any year you choose. You could even travel into the far future.
Time travel has always been something fictional, but in recent times, it has become a prevalent claim. From the people who claimed to travel back in time to those who claimed to have visited the future, to those who claimed to have encountered a short-term time slip, this video entails each of these intriguing stories. How long have time travelers been among us without us noticing? How did these time travels happen? Join us as we explore how this time traveler shows a photo from the year 6000 amongst other time travelers. Number 20. Waterworld. In 2018, a man named Edward claimed to have traveled to the year 5000 and returned with photographic proof. Edward asserted that in 2004, he was selected for a secret project which sent him into the future. According to him, the photo he shared of an underwater city is Los Angeles, 3,000 years in the future. By that time, the world will have been flooded by global warming, and mankind will survive by living in floating cities, such as the one from which he took the photo. Whether it is true or not, we just hope the future isn't like Waterworld. Number 19. Disappeared Cafe. Charlotte Warburton is among the few people who claimed they had experienced a time slip. It began on June 18, 1968, a time when England, like much of the world, was navigating the aftermath of war and the onset of modern technological advances. It was during this period that Charlotte stumbled upon a cafe while gallivanting around the village in search of her favorite coffee. However, it seemed the cafe she visited was nothing near ordinary. According to Charlotte, upon entering the cafe, she found herself inside a shop that seemed built over a decade earlier. The decor was old-fashioned, at least for the year 1968. Even the patrons seemed dated for a summer in the 60s. Although perplexed, Charlotte didn't probe further and visited other establishments to find her favorite coffee. It was when she met up with her husband and told him about her experience that she realized that something was amiss. She tried to show her husband the cafe, but no matter how often she searched for it, she never found it. In its place was a completely different establishment with no sign or record of the cafe she remembered so vividly. Skeptics might dismiss Warburton's account as a figment of her imagination or a misremembering of events. However, her story is not isolated, as it joins a collection of similar stories documented throughout history, where individuals claim to have momentarily stepped into the past or visited places that later proved to be non-existent in their time. Number 18. A man experienced his older counterpart. In 2006, Håkan Nordqvist, a Swedish man, claimed to have experienced an event so extraordinary that it challenged the very fabric of people's understanding of time and space. His story began on an ordinary day when he came home to find water flooding his kitchen. Attempting to fix what he assumed was a standard plumbing issue, he reached under the sink and, according to his account, found himself crawling further than the physical space should have allowed. It was through this unexpected journey that Nordqvist emerged, not just in a different place but at a different time, years into the future, where he encountered an older version of himself. This would have been easily dismissed had it been this man did not claim that he managed to take a video with his mobile phone of himself and his older counterpart, who is significantly older but still has the same tattoo. Although not as good, digital manipulation was already possible in 2006, nonetheless, much more basic and easier to distinguish. As a result of that, Nordqvist's experience became among the most convincing stories of a time slip. Number 17. Non-existent country. In the 1950s, on a sunny day at Tokyo's Naha airport, a well-dressed man arrived, marking the beginning of a remarkable tale. Nothing seemed unusual at first glance, until he presented his passport during customs checks. The passport appeared to be issued by a country called Taured, a nation that, according to our world maps and political knowledge, does not exist. The man was adamant that Taured was a sovereign state located between France and Spain. Matter of fact, he expressed confusion and frustration when informed otherwise. He claimed he was in Japan on business, something he had done many times before, and provided a passport filled with previous stamps as proof of his extensive travels. The man also carried currencies from several European countries, had a driver's license issued by the mysterious country of Taurid, and possessed checks from a bank that nobody could trace. Naturally, the TSA was baffled, clueless as to what to do. The man was detained for further questioning, and he was asked to point out Taurid on a map. Without hesitation, he indicated the area occupied by the Principality of Andorra, genuinely bewildered by its absence. As the story goes, the man was held in a nearby hotel room under guard until an investigation could be conducted. The room was high above the ground with no balcony, and the only exit was watched by security. Yet by the next morning, the man had vanished with no traces, leaving behind a mystery that would captivate the imagination of many for decades. Number 16. Future Air Raid. British journalist J. Bernard Hutton and photographer Joachim Brandt are two figures involved in one of the most controversial reports in history. In 1932, Hutton and Brandt were assigned to cover a story at the Hamburg shipyard for a German newspaper. The task was not anything extraordinary, or at least that was how it initially seemed. However, what transpired would leave both men bewildered and forever alter their perceptions of reality. As the duo went about their work, the shipyard suddenly suffered an unexplainable attack from the air. The sky was filled with the roar of engines and the terrifying sound of bombs exploding around them. The two men found themselves in the midst of what appeared to be a full-scale air raid. Amid the chaos, Brandt captured photographs of the attack, and both men made a hasty retreat from the scene, shaken but unharmed. Upon returning to their newspaper office and recounting the ordeal, their story was not believed. No reports of an air raid on the Hamburg shipyard had been made, nor was there any evidence of damage or casualties. Brandt's photographs, developed with the anticipation of capturing the harrowing event, showed nothing but the serene anomaly of the shipyard at peace. The story might have ended there, dismissed as a shared hallucination or an elaborate hoax, were it not for the events that unfolded nearly a decade later. In 1943, during the height of World War II, the Hamburg shipyard was subjected to a devastating air raid by Allied forces, an attack that mirrored the exact scenario Hutton and Brandt claimed to have witnessed in 1932. It is quite strange that their story suggests yet another possibility of a slip in time. Number 15. The Montauk Project. Perhaps the Netflix show Stranger Things was inspired by real-life time travel experiments. The hit Netflix show was influenced by the book The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time by Preston B. Nichols and Peter Moon. In the book, Nichols shared his alleged experiences at Camp Hero in Montauk, where experiments on children with psychic powers supposedly opened portals to other dimensions and times. The book also describes the tale of Al Bielek, who claims to have been part of the famous Philadelphia experiment in the 1940s, which supposedly teleported the battleship USS Eldridge through time. Number 14. Philadelphia Experiment, allegedly conducted in October 1943 at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The Philadelphia Experiment is said to have achieved the unthinkable, rendering the USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort, invisible to enemy devices. Undoubtedly, it is hard to believe, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. The story goes that the ship not only vanished from sight, but also teleported from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia, and back again, with some versions of the story suggesting a journey through time itself. To examine if there is any truth to these claims, the origin of the experiment has to be traced. The consensus is that the experiment's beginnings can be traced back to the 1950s, with a publication of letters and accounts from a man using the alias Carlos Allende. Allende claimed to have witnessed the Eldridge's disappearance while aboard a nearby ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth. According to Allende, the experiment was part of a series of tests to apply Albert Einstein's unified field theory. In an attempt to achieve visibility through the manipulation of electromagnetic fields, the story alleges that the experiment had unforeseen consequences, including crew members being physically fused to the ship upon rematerialization, severe psychological trauma, and the unintended temporal displacement of the vessel. Skeptics and historians have extensively challenged the accuracy of the Philadelphia experiment, citing a lack of concrete evidence, inconsistencies in accounts, and the impossibility of the scientific principles purportedly employed. On the other hand, the U.S. Navy has categorically denied any involvement in such an experiment, attributing the story to a combination of wartime rumors, optical illusions created by degaussing techniques used to make the ship magnetically invisible to torpedoes, and the imaginative embellishment of tales told by sailors and conspiracy theorists. Number 13. Iranian time machine. In the spring of 2013, the world was captivated by the alleged discovery of an Iranian scientist, Ali Razegi, who claimed to have invented a time machine, or at least something similar. In the traditional sense of physically transporting individuals through time, this device was not a time machine. Instead, it purportedly allowed users to peer into the future, offering glimpses up to 8 years ahead. Razegi, a Tehran-based inventor with a reported association with Iran's Center for Strategic Inventions, dubbed his device the Ariayek time traveling machine. According to Razegi, after taking readings from a user's touch, the machine could predict the future in a printout, providing details on the life and destiny of individuals. In his statements to the media, the Iranian scientist suggested that the device was intended for use by governments or strategic organizations, potentially to predict military conflicts or forecast fluctuations in currency markets and oil prices, thereby giving Iran a strategic advantage on the international stage. However, there has been no confirmation regarding the existence of this alleged device. Number 12. A time traveler from the year 6000. You might have heard about this in the news just recently. In 2023, the story of an alleged time traveler emerged on the internet. According to the account, an individual whose identity remains shrouded in mystery due to the obscuring of their face and voice in interviews, claims to have journeyed from the distant future, specifically from the year 6000. Speaking through distorted audio to preserve anonymity, this person has shared his experiences over 4,000 years into the future. They described a world where society is significantly advanced by technology beyond our current understanding, where cities are built with an architecture that defies the laws of physics as we know them, and where diseases that plague humanity today have been eradicated. One of the most fascinating pieces of evidence that this alleged traveler offered was a blurry photograph claimed to have been taken in the year 6000. The image, difficult to cipher and open to interpretation, is said to depict a futuristic cityscape with buildings and technology that no known contemporary design or science can explain. Critics argue that the photo lacks clarity and detail, making it insufficient proof of time travel and easy to dismiss as a fabrication. Considering how easy it is to fabricate digital images and even videos in the present day, the sheer amount of skepticism surrounding this alleged time traveler story is understandable. Number 11. Self-acclaimed future seer. After the turn of the century in less than a decade, it was a year since people began using the internet. Before the invention of Twitter, Facebook, and even before Friendster, which began in 2001 but sadly ended in 2015, people were using forums, online forums. They are similar to 4chan and Reddit, but are incredibly basic versions of those. It was during that time that the username timetravel_0 began appearing on various sites. The person named John Titor claimed that he was a man from the year 2036. If you think about it now, 2036 is not that far off from today, but at that time, 2036 sounded like a distant future. When Titor shared stories about the future, people were further captivated. He claimed he worked for the American military and went back in time to retrieve an IBM 1500 computer, an old machine that was needed to debug various legacy computer programs that existed in 2036. Being the grandchild of one of the people who worked on the 1500, Titor was selected to personally travel back in time in 1975. For what he claimed were personal reasons, he somehow found himself in 2000. The alleged time traveler told about a lot of supposed forewarnings, or rather what he claimed was what would happen in the future. A nuclear war, civil unrest, the beginning of the Third World War at the end of 2015, the end day, and much more. Unfortunately for the self-acclaimed man, almost, if not, none of these came true. Despite that, many continued to believe that he was indeed a visitor from 2036. The man repeatedly claimed that the many worlds' interpretations of quantum mechanics might dictate this world, and he would differ. Hence, many believed that maybe by visiting and interfering with the natural flow of time and space, he changed what was bound to happen. Since the early 2000s, Teeter's story has inspired countless fictional creations, and he continues to be a popular figure in pop culture and obscure conspiracy theories. However, there is a lot more to John Titor's story than what most stories claim. Number 10. Vanished, 1940. Carr originally shared in a 1988 magazine article. This story follows two men who, on an early afternoon in Louisiana in 1969, encountered a vehicle from the past. While driving on a highway, the duo glimpsed an older vehicle. Upon drawing closer, they saw the slow-moving car's license plate, which had the year 1940 on it. Inside, they saw a woman in 40s attire and a child who appeared scared and confused. After gesturing to her to pull over to see if she needed help, the two were astonished to see that the car had vanished. Another driver who witnessed the event also supported their claim. Whether it is true or not, we'll never know. Number 9. Man who time traveled to year 8973. The year 8973 was over 6,900 years from now. Imagine just how much advancement the world must have instilled by then. Furthermore, imagine how different 8973 would be. Matter of fact, it is hard to believe humanity will still exist by that year. Well, a man named William Taylor claimed that 8973 is a time when Earth transitions into a utopia, a world where there is no crime or conflict, and every problem has a solution. As much as it sounds like the perfect world to live in, Taylor claimed he never wanted to return there. He claimed to have lasted only 6 hours in that year and swore that he never wanted to visit ever again. He further claimed that he was part of a project sponsored by the British government, and as a result, he was sent to 8973. There, he saw the future of our planet. Instead of humans, the Earth is inhabited by cyborg-like residents with abnormally large heads, eyes, and small mouths. Unlike humanity, these cyborgs are immortal. Moreover, they can also communicate using telepathy and can translate any language using their technology. Williams also shared stories about the year 3000, which he claimed was worse than the 8900s. According to him, it seems that in the next millennia, our world will be quite unbearable to live in, with a red sky and radiation in the air. Williams' claims are certainly quite hard to believe, but somehow he passed the lie detector test administered to him. He even claimed that a way to time travel was discovered in 1981, but it is not until 2028 that more people will be privy to this information. Number 8. Time-traveling hipster. A photograph was captured in 1941. At first glance, the photograph looks normal, until you look closer and notice one unusual figure. A person, whose nickname is the time-traveling hipster, suggested this man looked like he was from another era. He was wearing what seemed to be modern sunglasses and spotting a style that would not be common until decades later. The photograph first gained widespread attention in the 21st century, when it was featured in an online exhibition by the Brelorn Pioneer Museum. It wasn't long before people noticed the man who was admittedly incredibly eye-catching. The hipster was seen wearing what appears to be a t-shirt blazing with a modern-looking logo, sunglasses that resemble the type popular in the 2000s, and holding a portable camera. This item seemed completely out of place among the hats and overcoats of the 1940s crowd. Although the photos sparked countless theories about time travel, the consensus today is that the hipster wasn't a visitor from another year, but rather just a common hipster at the time, a fashionista who wore more daring clothes than most people. Number 7. Father Pellegrino, Ernetti's Chronovisor. Father Pellegrino Ernetti was a Roman Catholic priest who joined the Benedictine order at the young age of 16. You might recognize him for being a famous exorcist from Venice if you are into the occult and the mob. However, he is a man known for something else: the Chronovisor. This functional device, made using an antenna, metals, and cathode rays, can allegedly capture anything in time. Ernetti claimed that rather than a time travel machine, the Chronovisor was a tool to watch and capture historical scenes in detail. Using this device, Ernetti has witnessed speeches from the Roman Senate in 63 BC, the crucifixion of Christ, and the Last Supper, among other biblical events. As expected, controversy and skepticism surrounded the priest's claims. The scientific community questioned the feasibility of such technology, pointing out the lack of concrete evidence and the impossibility of the Chronovisor function, according to the known laws of physics. Number 6. Sudden change of environment. At the dawn of the 20th century in 1901, two English women experienced something unexpected. Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, both of whom bonded over history and intellect, had a casual stroll through the gardens of Versailles. However, a stroll transformed into an unexpected event as both of them were unprepared for what they were about to experience. As Moberly and Jourdain wandered away from the main tourist paths in search of the Petit Trianon, a small chateau within the grounds famously associated with Marie Antoinette, the atmosphere around them unexplainably changed without them noticing. The scenery around them had changed, and they found themselves almost as if they were in the late 18th century. The two women claimed to see buildings and landscapes that appeared familiar and unsettlingly out of place. They encountered people dressed in period clothing, including a woman sketching, whom they later believed to be Marie Antoinette herself, days before the turmoil of the French Revolution would engulf her life. Many tried to explain the reason behind the English women's experience, from a simple hallucination fatigue to a paranormal experience. Although countless people tried to refute their experience, Moberly and Jourdain remained firm about what they saw. That being said, whether they experienced time traveling or just a paranormal experience is individually subjective. Number 5. Not the Noah from the Ark. Imagine if you could go back in time and meet your younger self. Certainly, you would have one or two things to tell your younger counterpart. In 2017, a man calling himself Noah claimed to be from 2030 and passed a lie detector test. He subsequently appeared in a video with another Noah from 2070. They provided vague descriptions of the future, like cars are very fast and they get pushed by the road. It is a shame that 2018 Noah wasn't there too, but maybe 3 Noahs would have collapsed reality. Noah's predictions included advanced AI, a manned mission to Mars, and cures for cancer. Alas, a man named Jason later claimed he was Noah, and it was all a hoax. Number 4. An accurate glimpse into the future. In 1935, the senior commander of the British Royal Air Force, Victor Goddard, experienced something many would call otherworld. Goddard had a brush with the unknown, beginning on a routine flight from Menbur, Scotland, to his home base in Andover, England. His journey took an unexpected turn as he flew over the disused Drem airfield in East Lothian, Scotland. At the time, Drem was in a state of disrepair, its hangars in ruins and its runways overgrown with foliage, a leftover of the First World War's end. Goddard's account detailed a sudden and severe storm that forced him to navigate above the clouds, where he experienced disorienting conditions that some might describe as otherworldly. Upon descending, the storm unexpectedly cleared to reveal the sun shining down on the Drem airfield below. But this was not the dilapidated state he had observed just moments before. Instead, the senior commander described seeing a fully operational airfield with mechanics in blue overalls, unlike the brown ones that RAF personnel wore at the time, working on yellow planes, a color not used by the RAF until years later. Amazed by this sight, the senior commander continued on his journey, unable to make sense of what he had witnessed. It was not until only 4 years later, in 1939, that the RAF began to use the Drem airfield again, refurbishing it to the standards that Goddard had seen, including the adoption of yellow training planes and the introduction of mechanics' blue overalls. Number 3. The man from the preceding century. In the late 1950s in the Big Apple, New York City, Rudolph Fentz's story began. According to the story, a man appeared in Times Square one evening, seemingly out of his element and time, dressed in the fashion of the late 19th century, complete with a top hat and frock coat. This man, identified as Rudolph Fentz, looked bewildered by the modern world around him. Before he could find his traction, he was struck by a car, rendering him lifeless. The bizarre details began after a police investigation. In Fentz's pockets were currency from the 1870s, a bill for the care of a horse and the washing of a carriage, a letter sent to an address that no longer existed, and business cards bearing his name. Further research led to the discovery of another man named Rudolph Fentz, who had disappeared in 1876, vanishing without a trace. This led to speculation that the mysterious man had somehow traveled through time, from the 19th century to the 20th, only to meet an untimely end. However, to this day, solid evidence about this man remains unavailable. Despite the lack of evidence, many continue to believe that Fentz indeed experienced a time slip, but in his case, it ended his life. Number 2. Traceless disappearance of a genius. Born in 1906, Ettore Majorana was known as a brilliant Italian physicist. He made significant contributions to the world of quantum mechanics, especially with his work on neutrinos and the theory of Majorana fermions, particles that are their own antiparticles. Matter of fact, his intellectual prowess was incredibly well recognized by his peers, including the renowned physicist Enrico Fermi, who regarded him as a genius on par with Isaac Newton and Galileo Galilei. However, the physicist's promising career and potential scientific contributions were cut short by his mysterious disappearance in 1938. This disappearance has fueled speculation and intrigue for decades. The mystery surrounding Majorana's disappearance began with his abrupt departure from Naples, where he had taken up a professorship. After withdrawing a significant sum of money from his bank account, he vanished, leaving behind a mysterious note that suggested he was either planning to take his own life or disappear altogether. Addressed to the director of the Naples Physics Institute, the letter hinted at a decisive action on his part, but was vague enough to leave room for interpretation. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no conclusive evidence of the Italian professor's fate was ever found, leading to rampant speculation and numerous theories about what truly happened to him. One of the more speculative theories that emerged was the idea that he had somehow managed to travel through time. This theory is mainly supported by his work and his profound understanding of the universe's fundamental principles. Some conspiracists suggested that his disillusion with the potential for his research to be used for destructive purposes, like the fate of nuclear physics during and after World War II, might have sought a way to escape the ethical and moral dilemmas of his time. The brilliant professor might have resorted to time travel, or slipping into an alternate dimension, providing Majorana with the means to elude a world on the brink of catastrophic war. Nonetheless, this aspect of the story also remains a subject of speculation. Number 1. Stephen Gibbs HDR. If Ernetti had the Chronovisor, Stephen Gibbs, an inventor from Iowa, had the hyperdimensional resonator, or the HDR, as it is popularly called. According to Gibbs, the HDR was born out of his extensive research into electromagnetism and its potential effects on time and space. He described the device as a complex apparatus capable of generating a powerful electromagnetic field, which, when properly calibrated and utilized, could enable the user to transcend the conventional barriers of time. In essence, the HDR is a time-traveling machine. The machine consists of various components, including a dial for setting the desired date and location, a powerful magnet, and a witness well for placing objects that hold a personal connection to the user, reportedly to enhance the focus and effectiveness of the time travel process. Naturally, skepticism surrounded the inventor's claims. Critics pointed to the lack of empirical evidence and the theoretical impossibilities posed by current understandings of physics. Bound by the constraint of empirical evidence and peer review, the scientific community largely dismissed the HDR as a fanciful creation with no basis in reality. Yet the story of the HDR and Stephen Gibbs found a receptive audience among enthusiasts of the paranormal and alternative science. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another of our interesting videos before you leave.